Welcome to the Reverse Diabetes Podcast, where we bring you real conversations, real hope, and real solutions for type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. I'm your host, Dr. Beverly Yates, MD, a licensed naturopathic doctor and blood sugar expert. Each week, I sit down with trusted medical professionals and health leaders to share insights, strategies, and stories to help you reverse type 2 diabetes naturally and live your healthiest life. So, if you're ready to feel better in your body, to boost your energy, to take control of your blood sugar, lower that A1C, and finally move forward with confidence, you're in the right place. Welcome. Hey, all right, I'm delighted for this episode. I've been so excited to interview my friend, Wendi Tolkin San George. She and I had the wonderful opportunity to connect and meet through an ABC TV Hollywood show. We had produced two pilot episodes. ABC wound up not greenlighting that show, but here's some of the wonderful things that happened. I got a chance to meet Wendi. And as I got to know her and work with her, one of the things that I noticed in advance was how much she cares about the people that she has, for instance, as her clients for makeup. And in general, that's how she is in the world. She had reached out to me in advance of the filming of the show for both of the pilots and wanted to be sure that she knew what kinds of things I was comfortable with like how much makeup, what kinds of makeup. I'm pretty much a no makeup girl. Like for me to put on lipstick is a big deal. And Wendi met me where I was at, and I appreciated her professionalism and her warmth and her guidance to make sure I looked right on camera. So with that in mind, Wendi, welcome to the Reverse Diabetes Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me.
Sure, sure. I'm happy to have you here. I know at the time when I met you, which was a little over 10 years ago at this moment, um, you were going through your own health journey, as was your husband. And you're also a mother, a parent, and all kinds of things were happening. Meanwhile, you had your professional work in studio around Hollywood, LA, other parts of the country and world as a makeup artist, right? And in your case, your blood sugar was running amok at various times. So let's start the story there because we're here to talk about things to do with diabetes and reversing type 2 diabetes where possible. Would you give me a thumbnail of what your journey has been with type 2 diabetes? And let's start the story where it was where you found out about it, and then you can let people know where you're at this moment. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I found out about it when I was pregnant with my second son, who is now almost 26, when they do the testing for gestational diabetes. Well, that I was so good. I followed every instruction. I had to give myself insulin shots in my stomach and everything. The minute he was born healthy, I went right back to my ways. I didn't, you don't feel the effects, at least you think you don't feel the effects. Now that I'm a 5.2 versus a 10, I know what those effects
Mhm.
were. I would fall asleep sitting there. I was, like that was my blood sugar, but I didn't know that. So you don't see that disease. So you were like, I'm okay. I'm okay. As long as my baby was born healthy, I'm okay. And I went right back to my ways. I weighed almost 400 pounds, 396 pounds. And I was taking care of an ill husband, and my blood sugars were all over the place. And he passed away uh, almost 5 years ago.
I'm so sorry.
And when he passed away, my kids said to me, who are now adults, 28 and almost 26, they're like, "You're all we have, mom," And looked at them and I thought, oh my God. And I started my healthy journey then to lose my weight, get my blood sugar under control. And my doctor offered to have me talk to a diabetes specialist and through Zoom, because it was during the whole pandemic. It was 2021. And she, instead of oh, everything's because you're fat. Everything's because you're fat. She was very loving and warm. Like you said, that kind of personality makes a difference to people. And I think, especially as doctors for patients, when you have a doctor who says, oh, it's because you're fat. It's because you're fat. It's because you're fat. You tend to just shut that door and not want to hear what they're saying to you. So she, for some reason, clicked with me and started talking to me about what she thought I should do and how I should eat, and didn't tell me I was wrong for anything. Just said, well, why don't we try this kind of popsicle instead of that popsicle, things like that. And with her, and I'm on metformin. I still am on metformin. They told me that once a diabetic, always a diabetic, except you can have your numbers perfect, but you have to treat yourself like you are one. And so I literally am still on metformin, except it went from 1,000 3 times a day to 500 twice a day. And then when what is the shot? Ozempic came out, and I'd already been on my weight loss journey and been gotten myself to a 7. I think it was like a 7.3. The diabetes specialist suggested I try that.
Okay.
And she said it's just one shot a week, and it can really help get you past the sevens, because I was really exercising, doing everything I'm supposed to. I still, every day, I swim 2 hours a day in the pool in the summer. And then I have a gym in my house. Howie gave me an elliptical that was in his family, and my son bought me a bike, and my next door neighbor gave me a treadmill. So I have all these things, and here. So every day I'm exercising. I walk my dog 1.5 to 2 miles a day. And all of a sudden, every test, it was like, a lower 7, then it was in the 6s. And then as I lost weight, so now I am 158. And that's with all my excess skin. The reason why I'm wearing this is because you can see I have a lot of skin
Yeah,
everywhere.
that
And
happens.
yeah, and I just got approved to have my stomach skin removed. So 158 with all my excess skin, from almost 400 pounds, which is what really, I think, the exercise, eating more correctly. I don't eat sugar. I eat monk fruit. I know I'm not supposed to eat Splenda, but I do. But I don't eat any sugar. And I really eat very little carbohydrate in the what you call purposeful sugars, like white breads and rices, things like that. Quinoa, I will eat that. I try to use my calories to the best of my protein ability. And now, just about a week or two ago, I had my blood tested, and I'm a 5.2.
Wow. So, Wendi, let's make sure we can make a little synopsis here for people, right? So, all the numbers that Wendi has shared when she's called out her weight, where she started her journey at 396 pounds and is currently at 158, including the excess skin from all the weight loss, and that can take some time. The body isn't always able to resorb that. The other numbers that she shared, where she started out an A1C of 10, then she got into an intermediate place of an A1C of 7 to 7.3 or so. Then her doctor changed her medication, and now her A1C is
5.2.
all right. Congratulations. Yes.
Thank
So
you.
let's give a little definition here, and then we'll continue on with your story, because I want to make sure
Okay.
people aren't lost. They aren't necessarily going to be familiar with these guidelines, right? Because for whatever reason, it is
Yes.
not clearly communicated. So type 2 diabetes is defined as an A1C of 6.5 and higher. Prediabetes is an A1C of 5.7 to 6.4. It's a range. If you were diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic and you're able to get your A1C under 6.5, so you're somewhere between 5.7 to 6.4, that's considered remission. Reversal is defined as getting that A1C from the type 2 diabetes level of 6.5 or higher all the way to 5.6 or lower. And Wendy currently is enjoying and has worked her behind off for an A1C of 5.2. So I want to make sure everybody got that. Take notes if you need to, because we really want to educate people so that they
Yeah.
understand. And you're right. Diabetes is the kind of chronic thing that will be around for a lifetime if you go back to any old habits, if other
Mhm.
unfortunate things perhaps out of your control happen, etc. There's a lot of reasons why people might zigzag around. But the point being that you have to continue to do the things that are working. So if you find what's
Mhm.
winning for you, keep it up, folks. I want to make sure everybody understands that listening to this podcast. And the same for health and medical professionals who are listening. We got to do a better job of communicating to the people we serve. All right, Wendy,
Yeah.
back to you.
Okay. Where would you like me to go from here? So I absolutely don't get those lows anymore. when the doctor, when I was a 10, but going back to the 10, they wanted to put me in the hospital, but I refused because I had small kids and my husband was ill. So I said, no, no, no. And she said, well, I will give you, this opportunity to meet with the, specialist. She goes, but otherwise I'm not going to be your doctor if you don't get into the hospital. And with the kids and everything, I got scared and I jumped too and behaved. And now it's just a way of life
And how
for
many
me.
years ago was that, or approximately what time?
Um, about almost 5 years ago.
Okay.
But,
So with that
yeah,
in mind, sometimes I think we all need that motivation. It's the carrot and the stick. In this case, it was the stick, along with the carrot, right? The stick was
yes,
the
both.
hospital, the carrot was the children, and the
Yes,
realities of the needing to still work. You're caring for an ill husband. He passed away. I'm so sorry for your loss. I
thank
know
you.
that when I met you, you were very much in the midst of that caregiving moment. So there's
Yes,
several points I'd love to lift up as we have our discussion here.
yes,
One of the things I've observed in my clinical work, 30 plus years of it, is it's amazing to me how many people who have type 2 diabetes, sometimes pre-diabetes, but typically type 2 or even type 1.5, they have a time frame in life where they are a caregiver above and beyond, let's say, what would normally go on with parenting. They often wind up with someone in their close in family or loved ones who's ill and they're doing caregiving. And from what I've been hearing people share over the years, it seems like that puts people right over the top. If they were on the brink, it shoves them right across the threshold. What was your experience in that time?
yes, because, well, two things. Number one, the stress is beyond what anybody can comprehend if they haven't been in that situation. And I hope they never have to be. But the stress puts your body through. And then you're so busy taking care of everybody else that you just shove a candy bar in your mouth and some cookies at night and go to sleep at 10 o'clock. You're not doing anything for yourself. There is no self care at all. I mean, I put my makeup on and took a shower because that was my profession, but there was literally no self care. I never put an eye patch on. I never sat with a mask. It was like 2 seconds in and out for a shower. Like the stress is beyond, and you don't give yourself care, and you eat like, because that's the easiest thing for you. It's really the easiest thing for you. And that's what I did. And I find what you're saying to be my truth. That happened to me. The minute he had that accident, my life changed and I started gaining weight, and the kind of clothes I wear, you could kind of stretch into it 100 pounds, and then the next 100, oh, I had to get a bigger size. But, it was like, you just don't even realize, but I remember the day that I sat down on the couch and cried my eyes out when the reality that I really was a diabetic hit me, because it really didn't. Even when I knew for my son's birth, I needed to have my numbers down and be good so he was born healthy and all this, it still didn't hit me that this was a lifetime disease for me. And when it did, I cried like a baby. I literally cried like a baby because I felt like I had done it to myself a little bit. I know our bodies do what they're going to do, but nobody in my family is a diabetic. So I feel like it wasn't a hereditary thing. It was something I did to myself by not caring for myself and not paying attention to my doctors and listening to what they were telling me. Like somebody would say, well, didn't anybody tell you you shouldn't have eaten candy? Well, yeah, of course they did. But that didn't matter, because it didn't go in here. It went in here and boom, right out there. So, those things, when you don't physically see that cut or feel that pain, you don't pay attention to, when you're in the middle of trauma. It just doesn't matter. And I feel like that was a huge part of it for me. And it was much easier, not that it was easy, but it was much easier for me to jump full in when my kids were grown already and my husband sadly had passed on, and it was just me. and the dog, that it was easier for me to take care of myself. And I found that to be completely true statement what you said. Until you said it, I didn't even realize it was me when you until I just heard you.
Before we continue with today's discussion, I want to take a moment to share something that could really support your journey. Struggling to lower your blood sugar or wondering what to eat next? You're not alone and you don't have to figure it out on your own. Be sure to download your free copy of the Guide to the Yates Protocol, 5 Steps to Fix Your Blood Sugar and Reverse Type 2 Diabetes Naturally, to take the confusion out of your next steps and help you get real results. Download it now using the link in the description and start feeling more confident, more energized, and more in control of your health starting today. All right. Yeah, when I first met you in that moment, right? Literally, and I remember we had a phone call first, and you were explaining to me something about your background and shows that you'd worked on and skills that you were bringing that were specific and relevant for this TV show we were working on at the time.
Yeah,
And I remember, connecting with you, like we're both curly girls, we have curly hair, etc. Right? We were
yeah,
having a real fun time just exchanging. And in that, I was sharing with you that my mother had just passed away. It was literally a boom, boom. So the one of the lowest points in my life was being shoved right up against one of the best points in my life, right? My
yeah.
emotions were all over the place. And
Mm,
you held space for that and just listened to me. You and one of the other producers, in fact, I still remember, and prayers up for both of you for just your kindness in that moment because it was
oh,
challenging, right? It's I'm trying to
yeah,
represent and do a good job as a doctor on TV for a show. We
yeah,
don't even know that thing's going forward. And my own journey with self care in that year where my mother was so sick before she passed, I'm an only child. So, as I like to say, I had no illusion that another sibling was going to help. I was clear it was
right.
me, right? Because I know the whole
You.
sibling thing can be fraught. That's not guaranteed. I've heard so many stories. And I would
Yeah,
literally, some days, the self care I could do was 3 to 5 minutes of walking immediately in front of the house. That was it. Because at the time the kids were younger, they were little and depending on me you know, I'm married. My husband worked at a job far away and back. It just was a lot. Plus my clinical
yes,
responsibilities, caring for my mom, making sure she was okay and had what she needed. It was
yeah,
wild. The amount of pressure. I mean, I felt like I was personally in a vice and somebody was just turning the screws and I was just getting clamped, 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 clamped. So I hear you.
you understand what your patients are going through
Yeah,
because you've lived it
that's it.
yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's real.
And that makes a difference as a doctor because, like I said, a lot of doctors just say, oh, because you're fat, lose weight, you'll be better. That's not the answer when you're fat. When you're a fat person, and I was, uh, it's hard to hear that and you don't want to pay attention. You want something else. You want them to help you in a different way. And it took that diabetes doctor specialist to have compassion and understanding and talk to me in a completely different manner,
Yeah.
you know.
Thank you for
And
affirming that. Because, the way we're always trained, and I would say this is true probably for most, if not all, of the various medical and health professions, um, is to make a lot of assumptions, frankly, about people. And so part of the training is that if someone is overweight or obese, that's the root cause of whatever is wrong with them. And I've had the opportunity to work with quite a few people over the years who've had a lot of weight. They've lost the weight. They've gotten back to what's considered a healthy weight range for them, and they still have the original health problem. So
yeah,
it forced me to be a better doctor and to think about, what else could be a factor? For some people, weight loss is going to be the answer. It's going to be the answer for type 2 diabetes, maybe for high blood pressure, perhaps unfriendly kinds of cholesterol. Sometimes it really is a big help. For some people, though, it's just one more thing, but it isn't necessarily the answer. It's complex, right? So the way I've looked
yes,
at this with diabetes is it's the issue around self care, having the opportunity, understanding what it is you need to do to care for yourself, and then having access to the resources. And I feel like on the medical and health side, we don't do a real good job, in my opinion, on average, of educating our patients and our clients about what does that look like. Was it about nutrition? Is it about meal timing, portions, cravings? Is it about stress, sleep? Boy, you have affirmed the power of stress here. How does stress drive what we want to eat?
yeah,
Exercise, strength training. Like, I just feel we need to break this stuff down and make it doable and not
yeah,
Mission Impossible or this big old mystery.
yeah. and not pointing a finger at one thing, because I also have neuropathy, and immediately assumption it's diabetic neuropathy. Well, that does run in my family.
Okay.
Everyone in my family has it. My mother had it, my grandfather, my sister, who was never overweight, a very healthy, tiny, petite gym person. She has it. So it's hereditary. And I kept trying to tell them the diabetes might have something to do with addition to it, but this is a hereditary
Yeah.
condition for me.
Yeah. It could be
And
independent of diabetes. You're absolutely right.
they would not listen.
I'm
Nobody
sorry.
would listen. When you lose weight, it will get better. So after I've been lost all this weight for quite some time now and maintained this weight, um, they began to realize and sent me to a neurologist, and who said, yeah, it's hereditary,
What
for
you've been
you.
saying all along, right?
Yeah. And then I've been put on Lyric. I was on gabapentin for the longest time, but it really didn't help me. I couldn't sleep at night, which is not good for diabetes, as you pointed out. And the Lyrica, I don't know how much more it's helping, but it makes me tired at night. So I fall asleep at least for a few hours at a time. So, but again, another point with the medical profession and diabetes, it's just an assumption that along with diabetes
Right.
comes neuropathy.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. Um, my father's side of the family, diabetes runs at a frightening rate. He's one of 13 siblings, and they all had some kind of diabetes, including type 1.
Oh,
And in addition, now in the first cousins tier, some of us are on dialysis. Some of us have kidney anomalies, and the kidney anomalies preceded any blood sugar issues. And there's a handful of first cousins, myself included, who don't have type 2 diabetes, and we're working our behinds off to keep it that way. And this
yeah.
hereditary thing, getting doctors to really hear it and hear the order of events, the sequence of events, like somebody who has a bunch of health problems, and then maybe the last thing to show up is obesity, or the last thing
Hmm.
to show up is type 2 diabetes, or the last thing to show up is, let's say, the need to be on some other kind of treatment or intervention. And again, and I want for people listening who aren't in the medical and health world to listen to how to advocate for yourself. Make sure that that medical health professional is hearing you, and
Yes.
remind them what was the sequence of events, because that matters clinically. If they make an
Yes.
assumption about you based on very superficial characteristics, it's a disservice.
Yes. And it happened to me numerous
I
times.
bet. I'm so sorry.
And
Yeah.
to the point where I just didn't ever want to go to the doctor for anything. And
Let's
so
talk
for
about that.
many
That's important.
Yeah, I didn't want to go to the doctor for anything because the relationship with doctors was not there for me. I even went, and I'm not proud of this, I went many years without even any metformin because I just stopped taking the medication. I was like, whatever, nobody's listening to me. What's the difference? Da, da, da. But I didn't listen, period, because nobody was listening to me. And I had to say it over and over. And I'm going to be truthful. Until I lost the weight, I was not looked at and heard. I was not heard until I came in at 158 pounds and said, I still have really bad neuropathy. I need help for my pain.
Yeah.
And it's not from diabetes. So it it took that, like we said, the face of being overweight overtook any other possibility in the medical profession, you know? And it was a rough experience for me. And that's why when you asked me to do this, I thought, yeah, let me go on and talk to you and be truthful about the whole thing, and be honest about it, because I wasn't a great patient either, because I didn't take care of myself. I should have been taking that medication, and I was just like, whatever. I really let myself go completely with everything. But you could only fight one medical battle at a time sometimes, and I was fighting for his life. Mine, I didn't realize was a life-threatening disease, but it is, and I didn't realize it was,
Yeah, for the
you know.
amount of care and the love, the concern you had in caring for your husband and helping him with all of the various things that popped up, plus being a mom, you're working out in the world as a makeup artist, you're trying to be yourself, all your other relationships. it's a lot, right? It's, I feel like, and particularly in our country here in the US, we just don't make it easy for people around healthcare. We really, really don't. We make it confusing, it's conflicting, and we don't respect the people who show up. I am sad but not surprised to hear that you went years without care because it sounded like you felt like you had to climb out from under a mountain, really, of shaming, blaming,
Mhm.
and judgment. You'd been stigmatized, perhaps even demonized. And so none of those things are healing, not a one. They all
100%.
interfere with care. And so no wonder you hadn't gone for years, right? And so some doctors
Yep.
would look at that and say, oh, well, now that's your fault that you didn't somehow emotionally drag yourself up by your bootstraps and climb out from underneath the heap of piling poop versus, hey, health and medical people, let's do better, okay? It doesn't mean we're
Mhm.
going to be overly permissive, but it does mean that we're going to find a way to engage and talk with the people that we claim we serve so that they at
Mhm.
least feel welcome and comfortable and can continue care, because that's on us if they don't feel like we're there for them.
And I didn't go. I didn't go for any reason. Like, I just let everything go. And I know now, being a diabetic, that who has reversed it, but I now wear closed-toed shoes. I wear tennis shoes. I can't tell you how many times, because of my neuropathy, I was walking in blood on my feet and I didn't even know it.
Yeah,
Do you know? Because
right.
you don't feel
Makes
if you have
sense.
a nail in your foot, or you don't feel if you stepped on glass, or stung by a bee. You just don't know. And I look down and go, oh my God, I'm bleeding. So no more sandals for me. I wear tennis shoes, closed-toed shoes that are good for my feet. Plus I try to move all day and stand most of the day and move around. So the cushion of the tennis shoe really helps. But yeah, I just didn't go, period. Period. I didn't go. And that's the truth. Why? I just, my blood pressure was high, everything. Now, I am still on a very low dose of cholesterol and blood pressure, because now this is just what my primary care doctor said. Even though I'm a 5.2, because I asked, can I get off of some of this medication? She said, no, for the rest of your life, I want you on this, because uh, you're prone to heart attacks and prone to cholesterol and things because of the diabetes. And I said, but I really am not a diabetic anymore. She said, once a diabetic, always a diabetic. And so I still take like a 10 milligram cholesterol and a 25 what do you call it, blood pressure thing. But I don't, my blood pressure is fine. Everything's fine, you know,
That's great.
but
You find
I
what
still have to,
works for you. That's the
yeah,
important thing.
like
Personalized
you said,
medicine should be what everybody gets because we're not
yeah.
all the same. We could be twins, triplets, quadruplets. We're still individuals.
And I tried lowering the metformin even more, but it was still not high, but I was in the sixes. So
Okay.
it was like, well, if I take it the twice a day, I'm go to my five. So I still am on a lower dose of medication, but that's what my body needs. It needs the no sugar eating, the exercise, and all of that to keep me at a 5.2, which should keep me alive longer because my organs aren't going to be diseased.
Yeah, yeah, the organs get on the blood sugar roller coaster. I think most people understand that their pancreas is involved. They might have an idea that the liver's involved, but they forget that the entire rest of your body, including your kidneys and
Yeah.
brain, are also being affected by a flood of blood sugar. Um,
Mhm.
and that lack of insulin sensitivity, that tendency towards insulin resistance, is the thing that needs to be managed for a lifetime. And so
Yeah.
you're doing all the right things. I feel like you're pulling all the available levers here. You've got better sleep, your stressful situation where you're just so squeezed. Thank goodness, you've gotten through that gauntlet because that's a difficult moment, no question. In this case, it's years. It's not just a day or two. It's years. You spoke
Yeah.
about it being traumatic, and I'd love to know a little bit more about what was your experience with that because I don't think people understand with type 2 diabetes the emotional world behind it, along with,
Yeah.
in your case, the real pressures of caregiving and all the other demands on your time and energy, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I totally get that that's traumatic. What would you like to share to the people who are listening or watching this so they can get from this too? Because sometimes people who don't have the problem need to hear this because they have no idea what the other person's going through.
Right. Well, I also know now from going through this that when you are so highly stressed and traumatized, your blood sugar rises naturally. And so, and so if that's happening naturally and you're eating poorly and sugar and, late at night and not exercising and not taking care of yourself, you're getting into the tens, you're like beyond the chart. So the trauma of it is that here we had this normal life, two young children, babies, one was 3 and one was 6. And my husband had a car accident. But speaking of trauma, they had to open trauma. He was crushed in the car
Yeah.
accident, and they never were able to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And he got the MRSA bug and Pseudomonas,
Ooh, those are
and
nasty
it
infections. I'm so sorry. Wow.
never went away. And they were in his bloodstream and in his bones, and he could never heal from the bones could never heal because every time they put a prosthesis in, the cement would get eaten away. Like it just, he had over 40 surgeries, and and he was on, every other month, uh, IV, through a port. They put a port in. He was on IV antibiotics. I mean, he was in and out of the hospital. I mean, it was more traumatic than even just being home not well. It was constant care, taking him, bringing him home, visiting, bringing the kids to see their dad, back and forth. Like it was beyond, and he did come home as well. So, and it was very traumatic because I had to move him into his own room, in the
Yeah.
house too,
Yeah.
which was traumatic for my children, traumatic for me. It was a whole traumatic thing because it wasn't because he was sick and I didn't want him around. It was because he had infections.
Right.
So he could, and infections that could be passed on. And so he needed to be more isolated. And it just was something that young kids couldn't understand. They just saw their mom moving their dad into another room. It was a traumatic all the way around,
Yeah.
in so many ways. So I think my blood sugars were just bouncing up nonstop. I was like a bouncing ball, but it never left here. We go whoop,
Yeah.
whoop, 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 whoop. It never went here. I never felt the calmness that I feel now.
Hmm.
The more relaxed state, the ability to deal with things, with a more uh, a stable head. Like when your blood sugars are high, you can't think clearly. And that is a really important thing for people to know. You really can't think clearly. So your decisions and what you're doing really aren't always the right things because your mind is just like your blood sugar, all over the place, and your thoughts are not clear. They're very, very blurred. So it just takes all you can to just keep your truth of who you are, at least in your being, and that's all I was able to do. That was the most, because I would go to work and care for my clients and my celebrities and things, and that's part of my job, is to be that person for people. And I do it because I love it and it really is who I am. But it was all I could give, was to go to work and do that. When I came home, my kids suffered because I wasn't able to, sit and cuddle, because I had so much like this in my head and going on, that I gave them love and I kissed them goodnight, and but I couldn't go to the park and sit for 2 hours. I didn't even have that kind of time,
Yeah.
so they missed out on a lot that I wish I wasn't a heavy person at the time of their young childhood, and I had more physical abilities like I do now,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know.
I'm
So
certain,
for
knowing who you are and how you
mhm,
operate in the world, that you did the best you could with the
I
circumstances
did.
at hand. And, in that moment, as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, how could you not have had type 2 diabetes? Like, this is a classic
Right.
recipe. Like, if we had a recipe for how to ruin someone's blood sugar and this
Mhm.
aspect of their health, their metabolic health, this would be the formula. It's just entirely too
Right.
much. It's overwhelming.
Uh-huh. Overwhelming. And I like I said, no one in my family had it. It's not a hereditary thing. It was just me. So it was from all of this action,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I added to the action by not paying attention to my illness. I don't think a lot of people, including myself, when you're told you're diabetic, you don't realize what that is. You just sort of go, okay, you don't you don't think you feel it. That's a key. You don't think you feel it, but after you don't feel it anymore, you realize that you were feeling it.
Okay.
Does that
Share
make
with us some
sense?
more about that because I think one of the reasons the clinical folks, the doctors, perhaps health coaches, nurses, um, tend to be so judgmental and make so many assumptions is because they may not be that aware of what are the earlier stages, what are the signs, the symptoms. Like, so you touched on this at the beginning. What were you noticing looking back? What were you feeling, not feeling that was specific to this that then as you healed and got better and now enjoy this A1C of 5.2, what are the contrasts? What's different? Let's clue everybody in because I think these insights from you will just be life-saving for the people listening. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would sit down and have the biggest low, like, like I couldn't keep my eyes open at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Like all of a sudden, I was just exhausted from nothing. Like I didn't do anything. I was too fat to do anything, but like I wasn't exercising or running around. I just was extreme exhaustion. And then, 20 minutes later, I had energy again. Like it was this roller coaster of physical symptoms of exhaustion and not being able to sleep at night. I could not sleep at all. It was terrible because I think I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but I think those ups and downs were happening at night too. And my body wasn't able to sleep and I was just all over the place. So I was feeling that, not realizing that was the diabetes and just, oh, I must just be tired. But that wasn't it. I am never tired now. I get up every single morning, the latest 7, sometimes 6:30, and I am up till 11 or 12 every night. And I am doing. And when I don't have something to do, I started doing abstract art to keep my mind busy. So I'm constantly doing. I never really just sit and watch a TV show. If I watch something which I love, I'll be drawing at the same time, or I'll be making bracelets with beads. Like I just always am doing something else too.
Yeah.
I enjoy being busy now, and without being tired, which is, you said the word enjoy my A1C of 5.2, and that is such a good word because I am enjoying it. I'm enjoying the feeling of it for sure. I really, really am. It's good.
This is a
It
beautiful
really
healing
is.
journey. It really is. I'm so happy for you and proud of your dedication, your focus, your work. It's work,
Thank
people. It is
you.
absolutely work to be able to turn this around. It is doable. It is within reach, and everyone will have their own recipe for success. And there could be
Mhm.
bumps along the way. That's okay. It's about progress, not perfection. This is
Yes.
always about the idea that self care is not selfish, even in the most extreme, overwhelming moments. And, let's be real. Sometimes it's just not possible, particularly when you have
Yeah.
this much in the way of very real stress and traumatic situation to deal with that goes on
Yeah.
for years, but you still managed
Yeah.
to come back. Wow. Hats
It was
off to you.
it was over 20 years
That's a long time.
of him being ill. It's a very long time. And it was a traumatic start, like just getting a phone call from the side of the road, from a stranger that picked up his phone that flew out of the car and said, I put wife in his phone. And they found that and called and said, you better get here. And I threw my kids in the car, and it
Right.
was 2 days before Christmas. And
Oof.
it was literally, it was traumatic. And I think that trauma just stuck with me for many, many, many
Yeah.
years. And that's also a fault of mine. I could have seen a therapist, but I didn't.
Did you
I
really
could
have
have got,
time? Because it takes time.
Yeah, well, them, they didn't do these Zoom things.
Ah,
But now I'm thinking, oh, I could have done Zoom, but they didn't do it.
yeah.
Then you had to go in the office. So no, probably I didn't have the time to do
Yeah,
that.
the technology
But
didn't exist. Maybe a phone call, but Zoom and Skype, all these other things, I don't think had even been invented
yeah,
yet.
yeah, I don't think so. This is all new, the college online, everything, so I think it's something that people now, because you can do it, anywhere from your office at lunch break, at
Right.
your, because of the Zoom capability, that is also part of your self-care if you're feeling so overwhelmed and so stressed, I think now, if the technology was back then, could have done that,
Yeah.
but we didn't have it.
No,
You know?
my goodness. Wow. What a extraordinary journey that you've shared. Thank you so much for your insights. Are there any other things that you would like to share with our audience? Because I'm sure people are listening and I'm sure they're nodding their heads. Either they can completely relate to what you're saying, or they just got some insights or ahas, or if they are someone who loves a person who has type 2 diabetes, or they are a person who is supposed to be providing health care and medical care for a person. I'm sure my colleagues are learning something, because I think some of us, like I said, really need to have be more clued in about this. Other things you want to
Yeah.
share?
Yeah. I would say to the medical profession, please don't judge the book by its cover. Please, delve in a little bit further, to know what's going on. You know, make sure that you just don't say you're fat. It will get, when you lose weight, things will get better, because that just turns a fat person away. And I think if the medical profession were a little bit, I don't want to say kinder, because she wasn't unkind, just not, uh, I don't even know the word I'm looking for. But I need somebody to care enough to ask more questions, to find out why. Why am I a fat person with little tiny bones? Like, why? There's got to be a reason. People, when they say, oh, I'm born that way. No, you're not. You're not born 400 pounds. You know what I mean? So it's definitely, and I don't miss any of that, by the way. Once you get, what do they say? It takes so many minutes or days to change a habit. It's true. After so long of not doing, butter on my broccoli, I like the broccoli just steamed, like, without, like, you just learn to like things, and I don't pick salad because I have to. I actually like it,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know? So, and I learned things, bananas are not my friend because they're high in sugar, they're not good for me, and apples are not good for me, so I know that berries are, like, you learn through the education of your doctors. So if they try to give you that education instead of point a finger at you, you can do better as a patient, and so I know those things now, and I follow those things, and I will, at a party, I'll pick out the fruit and eat the berries. I eat what I know I'm supposed to, so it's definitely, and I carry protein bars all the time. Sometimes time is hard and I don't have time, but instead of eating cookies and chips, I'll eat a protein bar, you know. So I do, that is a good tip. Always have a protein bar with you, and make sure the macros are, good to the calories of what your protein is, and because a lot of them are really not, they're just candy bars.
yeah,
you know
yeah.
so
Some of them are candy bars with pretty marketing. Some of them are actual
yeah.
protein bars. Read the labels, friends.
Yes, read the labels, and we don't want to eat sugar. So unless it says 1 gram of sugar on it, that's not a protein bar for a diabetic,
Right, right.
So yeah, I eat a lot of protein bars. I really do. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I'm like, I want to get that 2 hour swim in. I'll just eat a protein bar for lunch and off I go. But that's better than I did for myself a long time ago. So it's better than a bologna sandwich, it's better than, anything I was doing,
Right.
So yeah, my main thing would be to say, please don't point a finger, and delve in further and help educate your patients in a kind way so that they want to hear you, because our ears just go boom. and they shut off, so that, I think that would be the main thing. And for people that are caretaking, please care for yourself, because I didn't. And I could have taken a lot of years off my life. I might still have. I'm 64. So I'm at my healthiest now at 64 years old, and thank goodness I still have some good years left, but I'm 64 years old. It took me a long time to figure out that I wanted to live and be healthy and, enjoy this part of my life.
Mhm.
So, don't wait till you're 64 because you should see what I look like before all this makeup.
It's never too soon and it's never too late.
No, never, right? Exactly.
Hey, a
Exactly.
question for you. Are there any words you'd like to share with people who are listening who had this experience where they've gone and they've asked for help and they've just gotten so beat up? Like, what would you say to somebody that help encourage them to go and try at least one more time to get help?
That's a very good question, because if you don't try that one more time, then you will wind up in a grave, because that one more time is what got me to where I am now. I was offered a diabetes specialist and I took it. And if I didn't take it, I would have never had that opportunity to learn what I've learned about it and get healthy. And people don't realize you can die from diabetes. You absolutely can. People don't think of it as that kind of a disease, but they call the silent killer colon cancer, because people are afraid to go to the doctor. But really, diabetes is also one, because people don't talk about it. They don't get the help they need, and you can die.
Right.
You can have a stroke and die from your blood sugar being too high. There's that is something that I don't think people think about. And like I said, when I realized, I sat down and cried.
Mhm.
I had a full on baby bawling, tear jerking hour. I was just like, oh, geez, I'm a diabetic. I could die from this. It the realization, I don't think, is there for a lot of patients that are not educated properly about diabetes, because you don't think of, they don't say to you, you can die from this. You need to get your, they don't say that, but you can, right? Am I wrong?
No, you're correct. It is a deadly disease and it is a silent kind of killer because certainly the early to middle stages often don't have really clear, obvious symptoms. And as people get more and more
Hmm.
tired and exhausted, they don't want to get up off the couch, they don't want to go work out, they don't want to exercise, they don't want to walk. They start to become more isolated, they don't have the energy to interact with other people. It's this downward spiral, but it is
I
subtle and
didn't want to
slow.
go anywhere. I didn't even want to go out my front door to visit with the neighbors.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do anything. All I could muster was going to work. That was it.
Yep.
That, because I was the only one paying the bills. So I went to work. But it was, and it got to a point, and I'll be real honest, and I could say this because it happened, that I started to cry in Howie's dressing room. He would just look at me and say, "How is Sam? How are the boys?" The tears would just start to flow, because I just couldn't hold my emotions in. And he is a big mental health advocate, so he
Yes.
did. Thank God I'm still with him. He didn't get upset with me. He didn't anything. But I couldn't even hold it at work together anymore. Like,
Yeah.
even at work, I was losing it. So that, it was a lot of years later, but I did lose it at work too.
Yeah, you're
And
a human being. And if people wonder, because you mentioned Howie before, it's Howie Mandel. One of the shows that he's currently on is America's Got Talent. He's been on many other shows, a very well known comedian and celebrity from around the world. And Wendi is absolutely his secret weapon. She does his makeup everywhere, just in case
I'm
people
very
were
lucky.
wondering.
Oh, yes, I'm very, very lucky. And America's Got Talent, 17 seasons he's been on, and I've been there all 17. And we're going live on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. Well, I don't know when this will air for you, but our live shows are starting soon.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just so interesting. Like, there's the person in front of the camera and there's the person behind the camera. He's always struck me as somebody who's genuine. And I know how
Genuine.
genuine you are, so I think you guys are a great match.
Oh, thank you. And he is 100% what you see is what you get.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
He's a caring, good good guy,
Yeah.
you know?
Good to hear
And
that.
he didn't care that I was overweight. He just wanted me to be healthy, you know? That's all. I mean, he was just a love bug during my worst time in my life.
Mhm.
And I'm so lucky that I had that job with him because that was life-saving for me to go away from my home for a while and breathe the fresh air of something that was fun and enjoyable. And but it was difficult at that weight, running around after people and taking care of them. It was very hard,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm grateful for every moment of it. I really am. And my age too, he didn't care. I like to think I don't look my age, but yeah, I'm definitely, and I will tell you something else really quick I should add. When you're that high of a diabetic, having any kind of surgery is dangerous. It's very dangerous.
Mhm.
Even in your high fives, they didn't want to do my skin surgery. But now that I'm a 5.2, I'm just got approved to get my skin surgery for my stomach. So that will start there and go, but you can't have any surgery that is a choice unless it's life saving. You're not going to get it with a high uh, A1C.
Yeah, the
So,
insurance companies have very strict guidelines around what they will and will not pay for. It's not
mhm.
considered something that, like you said, is immediately life threatening. It's considered elective. I have some other
Uh-huh.
patients who've gone through that, who've had a similar success to yours, who've had type 2 diabetes or some really profound insulin resistance, even in the absence of an actual diagnosis of type 2 diabetes, and they have all that excess skin. It's a big deal. And sometimes it's
It is.
uncomfortable. It certainly is X number of pounds of extra weight. These are the things that people don't really talk about. It's not obvious
Yeah.
unless you've been on this journey. Like, how would you know?
Right, exactly. And I hide it very well in how I dress and things like that, but it is very uncomfortable and sometimes it could drag you down to the point where you're like, "Oh, what am I doing this for? I still look how I look." I look worse than I did before. Maybe I look better with stretched out skin, but but you don't, and you don't want to go back the other direction. And it's been about a year of the journey of trying to find a surgeon that I felt comfortable with
Yeah,
and that the insurance would pay for and the whole thing. So I'm starting with that one thing, and I would not be getting it if my A1C wasn't at 5.2. There's no way that would be happening.
yeah,
So I feel so good about that. And anytime I want to take a bite of, something that's horrible, I think about that. I think, oh, that I don't want to go backwards. I don't want my A1C to go up. No, I'll get, popsicles or a halo or, something different. I switched to almond milk because I learned that I thought doing oat milk was better, but oat milk has more sugar. So, unless you read the labels, you don't know. And almond milk doesn't have sugar. So I stopped the oat milk and do the almond. And, it took a minute for me to get used to the flavor difference,
right.
but I don't put real creamer in my coffee. I use almond milk. So, yeah, a lot of things. You got to read those labels, too. I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
important.
Read the
Yeah.
labels and always know if they've changed it, like they've repackaged it. The colors are all pretty, or they've rebranded. Read the labels again because chances are
Read them.
they've reformulated it too. Not always,
Yeah.
but sometimes.
Because there's a lot of hidden sugar in other words, too.
Yep.
A lot of the words are, it just doesn't say sugar cane. There's a lot of words. Sucrose is sugar. Things are, I've gotten a little more knowledgeable than I used to be. And there's so many words, but if the first three ingredients aren't pure, you could stop reading anyway, because you don't want to eat that or anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
so,
Real
um,
food.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So I'm just going to continue this journey and hopefully I will have the strength to stay where I am and just keep going. I'd like to lose a little bit more. I don't know if I really need to or if it's the skin. I can't tell. So as I get the removal, I'll be able to feel better about my body and what I need to do more of. But
Yeah.
um, the exercise I'm just going to continue to do. And swimming is a great way to start, because when you're heavy, the pool doesn't hurt your muscles and your joints. And it was a really good way to start exercising in the pool. That's what I found. And that's why I'm so in love with a pool, because it was really there for me when I couldn't even get out on my own. I had to put a chair at the top of the stair so that I could get myself out. That's how heavy I was. I could get in because you kind of fall in, but getting out was very difficult. So the pool is definitely your friend. I would like to tell that to patients for sure.
That's a great tip. Thank you for sharing that.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Start wherever you need to start, friends, but please start. And if you are
yeah,
someone who's watching someone going through this, please be helpful where you can and
yeah.
supportive, and just remember we're all human and
Hmm.
we do need some support and encouragement. Just beating people up is not going to do it. It doesn't work from what I've seen. It's not healing.
Support and encouragement. You hit the two adjectives: support and encouragement. Beating people up, telling them you're too heavy, your face is pretty but you're too heavy, like that's not going to make them thinner. Saying, let's you want to go for a swim with me, let's go in the pool, I'll go with you, let's go do it together. You want to go to walk inside the mall because it's air conditioned, let's go, I'll go with you. We don't have to shop. I actually rescued my dog because I wanted a reason to walk. So I got her so that I would walk.
There we go.
'Cause if you have a dog, you gotta do play with them. You have to get exercise with them. Mine happens to swim with me, but pushes me over and swims perfectly cute. But definitely whatever it takes, a dog, a piece of equipment, a pool, just squeeze balls at first, whatever it takes. I used to do this in the car while I was driving at a stoplight. I would go like this with my arms, and then I would go backwards, and I'd count to 100, and then I'd start over,
Okay.
and I just do this, and you feel it up here in
Yeah,
your
you do.
arms. And I just do simple like this at a red light, and simple while I was sitting in the car, like simple, right? It's just simple things. I mean, I am not a therapist, I'm not a doctor, I'm just a patient that has taken the journey,
Yeah.
and these are little things that I've done, so and some people keep telling me, my neighbors, well, you got to start lifting weights, and I'm like, well, right now I'm good what I'm doing. I don't want to lift weights. I know I should do more strength training, but in the pool, I use the pool as
That
resistance.
works.
It works really good for me. Like you said, not everybody's the same. Just because somebody goes to a gym and lifts weights doesn't mean I have to, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So I can do what works for me,
Yeah.
you know?
That
I don't
is
want to break anything else.
that's fabulous. Do what works for you. I love that message.
Do what works for you. That's a good t-shirt. We should get that made with your name on the back.
Merch. Do
Your
what
next
works for
book.
you.
Your next book. Do what works for you.
I
I
love
like
the
that.
idea.
Your next title.
All right, Wendi,
Um,
thank you so much for all your wisdom, your kindness, and your insights. I appreciate
Thank
you
you
to
for
the moon
staying
and
friends
back.
all these years. I'm glad we have Facebook.
Yeah, we have been in contact over the years, above and beyond, and it's just been fun. Like I take screenshots when I see you on TV. It's just been
Oh,
fun.
I love that. Thank you. That's so sweet. And let's please always stay in contact. There was a special connection
Yeah,
for a
yeah,
reason.
yeah. You're just so
Absolutely.
genuine. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And knowing more about your details, I appreciate you sharing with such honesty, such openness, what it's been
Yes.
like. Because boy, did we cover so much ground on this. I just
A
get
lot, right?
tingles.
Yeah. And if you have any questions or anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer, and even be some kind of mentor for anybody that needs it, because I wish I would have had that earlier.
Yep. Don't struggle
Yeah,
alone, people. This isolation thing, I'm telling you, it's
yeah,
deadly. Isolation is
it's
not good.
really
And so
real.
Wendy's Instagram handle should be right there on the screen. I purposely put that up so you can reach out on social media and
Thank
connect.
you.
This really is Wendy. She's an incredible woman and such a blessing in my life and in the life of others. Thank you for this generosity today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. I will talk to you soon.
All right, take
Mwah.
care.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thanks for listening to the Reverse Diabetes Podcast. I hope that you're walking away with new insights and the encouragement to take your next best step. If this episode helps you, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone that you know. Before you go, don't forget to download your free copy of the guide to the Yates Protocol 5 Steps to Fix Your Blood Sugar and Reverse Type 2 Diabetes Naturally. It's the same proven framework I've used to help thousands of people get real results without extreme diets or expensive medication. Check the link in the description below to grab your copy and take your first step toward better blood sugar control today. Until next time, stay consistent, stay hopeful, and keep moving forward. Remember, this is about progress, not perfection.